All right, let's rock. For the first time in 2021, welcome to Flamesnation Live. It's Pat Steinberg along with you, live from our Sportsnet 960 studios downtown. Just wrapped up the big show on a Wednesday, and we have got lots to talk about. Training camp's officially underway. I have been back at the Saddle Dome for 3 days in a row, watching line combinations, deep pairings, practices. On Thursday night, we've got our first intra-squad game. You'll be able to listen to it on the radio on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Noah is first in line. Noah of the Blasty Cast is on with us. Eugene is on. Rob's on. JF is on. Dallas is with us. Welcome to the program. Why don't we jump right in? Get your questions and your topics to get in on the Facebook Live right now. Mike makes a great point. Crazy day, nice break to get away from the madness and talk hockey. Let's pretend that the United States doesn't exist for the next 20 minutes or so. In fact, you know what? I'd like to pretend that for the next little while or so. Let's start right here. How about those line combinations? There are the Group 2 lines. Elias Lindholm, let's start. It just switched. There's the Group 1 lines. Backlund, Mangiapane with Derek Ryan on the right. Bennett between Lucic and Dubé today. Group 2, Lindholm in the middle with Tkachuk on the left, Dominic Simone on the right, Monahan Gaudreau, and Josh Levo. Those look like what the lines might be to start the season. What do you think? What do you think of those four lines? Do you like Monahan and Gaudreau still together? Do you like Lindholm going to the middle? What about Tkachuk being taken away from Backlund and Mangiapane? It's one of the most interesting training camps I can ever remember when it comes to line combinations and when it comes to who might play with who. And I'll be honest with you, I like what we're seeing. I'm not saying that the lines that we've seen in the first 2-3 days of on-ice sessions are going to be exactly what we see when the puck drops in Winnipeg next Thursday. But what I do like is the fact that they're doing things a little bit differently, and that Jeff Ward and the coaching staff is open to doing things differently than they've been done before. For instance, taking Tkachuk away from Backlund and Mangiapane, moving Lindholm to the middle. Today, moving Derek Ryan to the wing with Backlund and with Mangiapane. I think that line could be outstanding together with the defensive responsibility of all three. There's still some offensive upside in all three guys. I think that could be a really good line for this team. It could be a really good shutdown line with some offensive upside. Lindholm, Tkachuk as a forward pair, I really like. Keeping Monahan and Gaudreau together, as much as a lot of people believe that they should be split apart, I am not one of those people. I believe that's the way to go. I think having them together is the best way for this team to go forward, using them differently, but still having them together. I think maybe my biggest takeaway before we get to some of the comments, is the fact that they've kind of constructed at least 3, if not 4 forward pairs that they can work with. So Lindholm, Tkachuk, there's a forward pair. And we saw Josh Levo on their wing for 2 days, and then today Dominic Simone. And then you've got Backlund and Mangiapane, forward pair. We saw Sam Bennett there to start. Today it was Derek Ryan. Monahan, Gaudreau, forward pair. We've seen Simone and Levo with them. And then I guess, even though it's not a center-winger combo, you've kind of got a forward pair in Lucic and Dubé, and I know the coaching staff likes those two guys playing together. You've had Bennett between them like you had today, and you had Derek Ryan with them for the first 2 days of training camp. I really like the fact that we're talking about at least 3, if not 4, forward pairs as it stands right now. That to me is really important, and I think gives them some nice flexibility as they try to determine what the best route is and what the best combination of forward lines is. JF asks, Levo better with Monahan or Lindholm? Or better with the Monahan or Lindholm line? My belief, or not having seen Levo for an extended period of time with either line. But just knowing what I know about Levo, the player, I like him best with Monahan and Gaudreau because I think Levo brings some defensive responsibility to that line that I still think they need, even though I believe using them in an offensively tailored role is the way to go. I think he adds some physicality to that line. And I think he's still he's a good finisher. He's not an elite finisher. I'm not saying that we're talking about a 30 goal scorer, but he has finish. He's able to finish on opportunities, and all of those. He plays a hard physical game. All of those things are kind of hallmarks of Elias Lindholm's game. And if you're going to move Lindholm away from Monahan Gaudreau, I think having someone who can do similar things to him, not at the same level, but can do similar things to him, is important. So I like Josh Levo on that line. I'm not saying that he's not a good. I think that there's a nice fit with him on a line with Lindholm and Kachuk, but I like him better with Monahan and Gaudreau just because of what he can bring and the similarities. And Lindholm was such a good fit with them. Gaurav writes, fascinating lines. I do love that Ward is willing to mix things up, and I think that's important. What has happened in the past or what has been constructed in the past hasn't worked. They haven't been able to have ultimate success with the line combinations they've used in the past. It is time to try something different. And if they're not going to make big changes to their core, then it's time to use the core differently. And I'm with you, Gaurav. I think that's exactly what Jeff Ward is doing, and I think it's important. Mike says, I like seeing Simone and Levo trying out with Kachuk, and that's exactly what we've seen. And it might not be done. We might see more experimentation with how those lines look and the way that that kind of third piece on the line. So we've seen Levo with Lindholm and Kachuk. We've seen Simone with Lindholm and Kachuk. Maybe we see somebody else. Maybe Bennett goes there. Maybe Dubé goes there. Who knows? I think there's going to be some experimentation. Maybe Mangiapane goes there. I think that we'll see the same lines tomorrow in the intra-squad game. I think that is something that, I believe what you saw today at practice is probably what they'll go with tomorrow night in the intra-squad game. And then they got a day off on Friday, and then I think that maybe we see things juggled up for Saturday at that practice. That's kind of the feel that you're getting at the Saddle Dome right now. Rob writes, I love the no traditional lines 1 to 4. It gives them flexibility and the ability to use differently at home or on the road. And it's true. It gives you, Rob, that option to be able to, whether it's a matchup thing that they want to take a look at, whether it's maybe it's something that they use differently home and road. That's something that's really interesting to watch and see how it plays out. So I'm with you. I think it does give you some matchup advantages, and I think it also puts, as we've talked about how many times on FN Live before, but I think it gives you the option to use Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan as a duo, and on that line, use them in a different way, use them in a way that I think is better suited to their skill set and better suited to when they're at their most successful or they're most effective. Jordan says, if Derek Ryan's your fourth line center, you are a deep team. I'm with you. And I said this on the air on the big show today, and I'll say it again. I'll say it again right now. And I asked Jeff Ward the question today in his media availability. I think the criticism or desire to move, the criticism of and the desire to move out Derek Ryan, it doesn't make any sense to me. I know that Derek Ryan's cap hit is more than $3 million. I know that he's 34 years old. I know that he's slotted in, I guess, as a fourth line center on some projections. Right now he's playing on a line or was practicing on a line today with Backlund and Mangiapane. I don't think that's a fourth line. I just think that there's been a lot of talk about trading Ryan. There's been a lot of talk about moving out his money. It's not a good contract, and you can't have that type of contract on the team. I really do disagree in a significant fashion because I don't know if there's a more versatile forward on the team than Ryan. I don't know if there's a guy that can be effective in virtually any role better than Ryan. maybe Lindholm, maybe Kachuk, but throw those guys out because they're the top forwards on this team. Think about it. Think about what we've seen from Ryan. We've seen him be a fourth line center before. He's been effective. We've seen him be a third line center before. He's been effective. He jumped in and played with Gaudreau and Lindholm a couple of years ago when Monahan was hurt. I believe that's what it was. He was on that quote unquote top line for a couple of games. He was good there. Now they're using him on the wing on a line with Backlund and Mangiapane. Like, I just think that type of versatility and the ability to be consistent, the ability to be effective in any spot up and down the lineup, any position in the forward ranks, that to me is a benefit. That is an asset. I'm not wanting to get rid of Derek Ryan. I think he's very important to this team, and he will be very important to this team going forward. Sam likes the trio of Gaudreau, Monahan, and Simone. Let's I'm going to double back. Let's change it up from the forward lines, because a couple of other questions that have come up that I think are interesting to dive into. The first one is from Rob, who says Rass as power play one is going to be great, and I know a lot of people loved the look of that number one power play unit when it kind of debuted earlier this week. Same four forwards: Lindholm, Gaudreau, Monahan, Kachuk. We're used to that. That's been a very good power play look for this team. And then on the top of that power play, we've seen Giordano there before. We saw Eric Gustafsson there for the short period of time he was here last year. And now Rasmus Andersson's there. And I love it. I'm with you, Rob. I think Rasmus in that spot, there is a ton of potential. There is a ton to dig your teeth into. I don't think Rasmus's offensive upside has been anywhere near unlocked at this point. I think there is still a ton of untapped potential there with Andersson as your number one power play unit. He's played power play time with them before, like with the team before, but never on that unit on a regular basis, an extended period of time. So I'm really looking forward to watching that and seeing how it plays out. Eric asks, how are Valimaki and Mackey looking? Well, Valimaki looks on it. It's been tough to evaluate. It's tough to evaluate in practice exactly how a guy is looking, because it's practice and you can get a semblance of it. And Valimaki skated well. He looks to be very much on it. I remember he played those 19 games in Finland this year. Like, he looks good, but until we see him in these two intra-squad games against fellow NHLers, I'm not quite ready to say exactly how he looks. I'm really looking forward to watching him tomorrow, though. So I think he's looked fine. Here's the thing I'll say about Connor Mackey. He continues to look like he belongs. He continues to look like a guy who should be in the NHL. And for a guy who's played 0 NHL games, 0 professional games, that's a pretty good thing to be talking about. So they've both looked good. You can only evaluate so much in training camp drills and practice. So I'm really curious to see those intra-squad games going forward. Sam asks, since Brett Ritchie will sign a PTO with Calgary, where does he fit? Well, first of all, that's still got to become official. Elliot Friedman is reporting it. So it is official, but we just now need to see when it's going to be announced. I believe he's quarantining right now. I think that's what the issue is. To cross a provincial or state or country border, you got to quarantine for 7 days, and in those 7 days, return 4 negative tests before you can join a team for training camp. So I believe that's what the holdup is right now, Ritchie quarantining. And once all that is, same thing, Oliver Shillington's quarantining right now and going through those same protocols. Once that is put to bed, my belief is that you'll hear that announcement of Brett Ritchie as a PTO. Look, when Elliott reports it, that guy's not wrong very often or ever. So it's going to happen. As for where he fits, my belief is he fits on the taxi squad. That's why somebody asked about the Stone PTO as well, and I'll get into that. But I think both the Stone PTO and the Ritchie PTO are taxi squad designed. I believe Stone will sign a contract, and I think you're talking about him as your 8th, 9th defenseman and putting him on the taxi squad maybe with Petrovic is maybe the way that it'll end up working. That's kind of what I'm thinking right now. Maybe they don't go Petrovic on the taxi squad. Maybe they Maybe they leave a spot open to move players up and down that aren't waiver eligible to save some daily cap space. Maybe that's what we're talking about. But I think both Stone and Ritchie are fits on the taxi squad as it stands right now. So that's how I would look at it, and we now just wait for when that Ritchie deal is going to be made official. Here's another one from Jordan. Moving Ryan would be moving a guy that can actually help you win. He's not a Matt Stajan, no knock on Stajan. Back off on our boy Stage. He was pretty good for a couple of years with this team in a more depth role. Like when he was in a third line, fourth line role, is a pretty effective guy. And you go back to the lockout season, Stage had a pretty good year as the de facto number one center on the team. Like, he's not an ideal number one center, but he was the number one center on this team in the lockout year when they played 48 games. He was decent in that role, playing above his head. JP asks, if Ryan doesn't go, how do the Flames get 23 players under the $81.5 million cap? The answer, JP, is I don't think they do, and I don't think they will. I think they'll be carrying 22 for most of the season on their active roster, which is fine. It means you'll have one extra forward, one extra D instead of two extra forwards, and one extra D or vice versa. But yeah, I think 23 is too much to ask, at least right now. I think they'll be going with 22, and lots of teams go with 22. And by doing that, you'll save a little cap room, and potentially by shuffling players from the active roster. The two guys they could do that with are Valimaki and Dubé. Shuffle them from the active roster to the taxi squad on non-game days. Doesn't affect the players because they're not waiver eligible. What it does affect is your daily cap space. You accrue that, and it can help you down the road come the trade deadline, and you might have a little bit more space at the trade deadline. Sam and a couple of other people asking whether or not Pelche and or Zeri are going to crack the roster. They're not going to be in camp or in practices until Saturday at the earliest. They will not be a part of the intra-squad game tomorrow. I would say long shot for either guy to make the roster. I'm curious to see how much they push. I'm not saying it's out of the question. I'm just saying long shot. Q is starting again later this month. I think best bet, Pelche goes back to the Q. And Zeri, with no Western League right now, probably goes to Stockton and plays there for a little bit. When the Western League, when the WHL starts playing again, then he can return to Kamloops. What else we got here on the chat as we start to wrap things up? Dylan wants to know about Hanifin on power play 2. I don't know. I would much rather. I think Giordano's the superior power play guy to Hanifin. I don't know. I just haven't seen enough from Hanifin from like the vision standpoint. I haven't seen it there for him to be a great fit on the power play. Like, the gifts are there. Like, the skating is I think he'd be very good in holding the line and walking the line and that type of stuff. The gifts are there, the skating's there, the shot's there. It's just that the vision to quarterback a power play, I haven't seen it yet. And maybe it develops. Maybe it's there right now. I just haven't seen it. And I think Giordano, Anderson are much better fits on power play units. Now, what'll be interesting is what they do with the second power play unit. Do they go with 4 forwards, 1 defenseman, or 3 forwards, 2 defensemen? If they do the latter, then maybe there's a way that Hanifin does see some power play. Zach says nobody's seen enough from Hanifin since he was traded to Calgary. It's been a letdown. And it depends. Like, comparing him to Dougie Hamilton, yeah, I think Dougie's the superior defenseman. But has it been a letdown? I don't know. He's still an under $5 million defenseman. He can still log 21, 22 minutes of ice time a night. He can take a shift in the top 4. I guess I didn't come in to the trade looking at Hanifin as a potential number 1 defenseman. I've always kind of seen him as a second pair guy. That's still where I see him right now. That's kind of where I see the ceiling. So I don't know, Zach. Like, for me, I don't know if it has been a letdown. But at the same time, if you're comparing him to Dougie, yeah, it's probably fair. JF asks, how many starts for Markstrom? 40. I think 35 is a nice target, give or take. 30 between 35 and 40 is probably a good number. If you can get him 37, that gives Riddick 21, which means Riddick is still very much part of it and still very important on the team. 35 to 40, somewhere in the 35-37 range, I think is probably fair when it comes to Markstrom when it's all said and done. We're going to be doing these at least twice a week. Sometimes they'll be longer. Pike's a talkative guy, so when Pike's talkative, these go a little longer. But the solo ones will go nice and quick on. So there's 20 minutes talking some Flames. We'll do it again on Friday. So join us on Friday. Thanks to everybody for stopping by. Great contingent of live viewers, and we'll have this up on Instagram Live. You can archive it on Facebook. We'll put it up on YouTube as well. Thank you very much. The intra-squad game is tomorrow at 7 o'clock. Will not be streamed by the Flames. The only place you'll be able to catch it is on Sportsnet 960 The Fan. I went the wrong way. There's Sportsnet 960 The Fan. Don't forget to listen to the Big Show. I'm not very good at this. In your corner, the Big Show, 1 to 6 on weekdays. Join us tomorrow for a ton more Flames talk as well. We'll talk to you on Friday for another edition of Flames Nation Live. Be well, everybody. Be kind to everybody. Let's not be let's be Canada. Let's not be what's happening south of the border. Stay safe. We'll talk to you in a couple days. It's been another edition of Flames Nation Live, and we'll talk to you soon.